So I'm Deacon Laura and I'm a part-time Methodist minister working within the Cardiff Circuit, and I'm on the Trinity Executive Committee. This church will always be very special to me. I was first brought here in a carry cot from southeast Surrey when I was 3 weeks old back in early April 1986. I've had associations with Trinity, both as a member of the Sunday morning English-speaking worshipping congregation, and then subsequently as a close friend of the project pretty much since I was born, really. I attended Sunday school here, made some wonderful close friendships here. We used to come on a Saturday morning for coffee, and it was a standing joke that I had a little step under the sink that I could stand on to help with the washing up. By help, I obviously mean get in the way and cause trouble. 3 biscuits on a Saturday morning, no more, but certainly no less. And a lot of love, a lot of kindness. I had a lot of trouble at school, and this place really was a home from home for me, in terms of family connections, not just family that I was related to, but that great big extended family that you get when you're part of a church. I went to Brownies here. We used to meet for junior church upstairs, and I used to open the little doors and make faces at the preacher, and it wasn't even a proper Sunday if somebody didn't come upstairs to ask why I was being allowed to do that. We did have great fun. I was a member here until I candidated for the ministry in 2012. But when I went away to university in 2004 and had a bit of a rough time, and like many young people, really needed to come home pretty soon afterwards, I remember feeling like a bit of a failure and like I was letting people down. And I will never, ever forget the way I was just swept back into the community and just loved into feeling better. And when I look around today and I see all that's going on in the centre, I think about the welcome and the kindness that I was shown really all my life, and how that's now being extended to so many people whose needs are far greater than mine ever were. When I was about 11, at Christmas, we always had a Christingle service. And it was one of those services where absolutely everyone came. The church was always jam-packed, full. And one year, our minister at the time, I can't remember why, but he wasn't available to take the service. And for reasons best known to himself that I will never fully understand, he asked me and my dad to take the service. Now, Dad wasn't a local preacher. I was 11, or I might have been 10. So I don't know what that was about. But anyway, we led this Christingle service, and apparently about halfway through, one of the older ladies in the congregation who was sitting next to my nan leaned over and muttered in her ear, "That girl's going to be a minister one day." And if you'd have told me that at the time, I would have laughed. I mean, I wouldn't have taken that seriously at all. But when probably about 10 years later, I led my first full service here during Advent, afterwards I was told about that little conversation, and it really made me feel, and makes me think even now as I'm talking about it, of just how much the support and those people had to do with my development as a Christian and my development as a minister. It was really funny, actually, when I returned to Cardiff sometime last year, because one of the first things I was asked was whether I'd be involved with the Trinity Centre. And obviously I did have mixed feelings, as in I considered saying no for about half a millisecond. It was very strange, actually, for me, because I was on the initial visioning committee that set up the very first little bits of what eventually has now become the Trinity Centre. We had our first meeting back in 2007, 2008 time. So it was quite weird to think of coming back in, 14, 15 years later, but seeing the developments and seeing how that little idea that we had about how this building could be used to support vulnerable people had just gone kaboom in the life of the area. It's just the most amazing thing to see. I was given the opportunity to say no, perhaps because of my relationship to this building and to its history. But to me, the fact that I'm able to tell the stories of how it was and connect them to how it is now, I think is really important, because this is still a Methodist project. It's still part of the life of the circuit. Mm-hmm. And I know that those of us who were on that group at the time are just so excited by what's going on. So this building is over 125 years old. Actually, I remember that the 100th anniversary was the same year that we did the Christingle service. It's been representing Methodism in this area for all of that time. But funnily enough, it is getting a bit rough around the edges. It's been rough around the edges probably for as long as I can remember, if I'm honest. And it really does need work doing to it to make it fit for purpose. When what is now the Trinity Centre was first being dreamed about, even then we knew that what we had wasn't what we needed and that we were going to need to make do. And the fact that more than 10 years later, those who are very closely involved in the project are still trying to make do. We are now in a position where we really do need to do some work. What's really interesting about this building is that it's always been under development. The original Methodist church that was here in this building was Newport Road Methodist Church, which during the war was the only Methodist church in this area that wasn't bombed. Both Roath Road, which is just around the corner, and the Methodist Church in Broadway were largely razed to the ground, as I understand it. And that was when those two congregations chose, instead of rebuilding, to move in here, which is why this church isn't Newport Road Methodist Church, it's Trinity, because of those three worshipping congregations coming together. So change and development is nothing new here, even from the 40s.